Thank you.
Right, again, my name is David Lita. This is the meeting of the Salt Lake City Human Rights Commission. It's Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, at approximately 5:35 p.m. We're in a room 118 of the Salt Lake City and County building. I want to welcome everyone here, especially our special guests. I just went through the roll and I see that we have all of our commissioners with the exception of Lucia Santini, Lucia Rodriguez, Olivia Hamillo, and that's it. We still have a vacancy for District 7, I understand. Do we have a proposed candidate to fill that district? We do not have a candidate. Okay. So we just went through the roll call. Has anyone had a chance to look at the minutes of our last meeting?
One thing for point of order, we do have to go around the room and say everybody.
Oh, I thought I just did that.
Oh, there's online like that was just the commissioners, but every single person in the room for
Oh,
records has.
Then I apologize. So would everyone who is participating first in person, that is not a commissioner, introduce themselves for the benefit of the record?
Nancy Cantor, I'm with League of Women Voters.
Oh. In case you didn't know, Jenny is one of the commissioners.
Hi, everyone. My name is Salvador Brown, and I'm the Air Quality Program Coordinator for this city.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Sophia Nicholas. I'm the Deputy Director of our Sustainability Department.
Michelle Mooney, Equity Manager, Salt Lake City Mayor's Office.
Maria Romero, Executive Assistant.
And now let's turn to online participants.
Everett
Anyone wanna go
Bacon,
first?
online, Everett Bacon at large commissioner.
Thank you, Everett.
Sure.
Hi, Ross Chambliss, Chair of Sister City Committee.
Katie
Thank you.
Matheson, I'm with the Department of Economic Development and I am the board manager for Sister Cities.
Very good. All right, anyone I missed? Hearing none, let's move on to the minutes. Have the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes? I will entertain a motion to review the minutes.
I'll second.
So moved.
Thank you, Everett. Will has seconded. Do I have any comments before we vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are,
I'm abstaining because I was not here.
okay, we noted. Pamela has abstained from that vote. Great, let's move on to the public comment period. Do we have any members of the public? We do have a representative here from the League of Women Voters who would like to express any opinions or make any comments dealing with our business or human rights in general. Okay, hearing none, let's move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is a presentation by the Sustainability Department. We have allocated 20 minutes for you to make that presentation, and we are all ears, and you have the floor. And to avoid further interruption, I'm going to close this door.
Okay.
Just leave it a little cracked if you can.
But in case somebody wants to slip in the crack.
And we have to have an open door policy, okay? We have our attorneys.
We don't have to have an open door clause.
Yes, just leave it.
Is that a rule? You have to have the door open? Wow, interesting. I didn't ever know that.
It's kind of cool. Okay. So again, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Slideshow. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Sophia Nicholas. I'm not Catherine. She is one of our team members, but unfortunately could not make it today. This is Salvador, and we're excited to talk to you about our new Clean Air SLC program. So
Before you go further, let me just make a note for the record that Olivia has joined us. So I'll make a note on this. It shouldn't be, the minutes reflect that as well.
the last fiscal year budget, which was almost exactly a year ago. It's the kickoff for the next fiscal year budget in case. But last year we were excited to have received the support and leadership of Mayor Mendenhall to launch this Cleaner SLC program. The Sustainability Department has always worked on policy. Lots of things are connected to air quality. We work on climate, we work on air quality, or renewable energy, we work on energy efficiency, but Mayor Mendenhall really wanted to do a little bit more to put resources directly into the hands of residents to improve air quality at the home level as well as the community level in the neighborhood. So we were able to hire Salvador, so we received a new employee. We also proposed these 3 different air quality incentives programs, which were funded. The first one, the electric landscaping equipment, was funded through the regular budget process, and then the e-bikes and indoor air quality went through a budget amendment. We just received funding in March. So next.
So would you prefer we reserve questions to the end of your presentation, or would you prefer that we interrupt as you go along with questions?
I don't have a preference.
Okay, so let me ask about the prior slide.
Okay.
When you say these are funded,
Yes.
put that in quotes, how much money has been allocated to each of these programs?
Yes, so the landscaping equipment program funded at $250,000. The e-bike program is at $200,000 and the indoor air quality
Is that first come, first serve?
$100,000. I'm gonna talk about that, so maybe.
Oh, you are gonna talk, okay, I'll reserve that until you
Yeah.
make your presentation.
Yes, thanks for your interest. Okay, next slide. So we actually just launched our landscaping equipment program yesterday. Yes, great. So fortuitous timing, we did not plan this and we got on the agenda, but this is the first time that this particular program has been run out of the city. In previous years, we have partnered with the state Division of Air Quality and worked with them, but this is the first time we've designed the program and are running the program specifically for Salt Lake City residents in Salt Lake City. So the reason for that is that the state has shifted towards only focusing on the commercial and business sector with their program, and we and the mayor really wanted to make sure we're focusing on residents. So the program includes vouchers for electric equipment. This includes string trimmers, leaf blowers, and lawnmowers. The reason that string trimmers and leaf blowers are on the list is that they're typically 2-stroke engines and they produce a lot of pollution. And so it can make a really big impact for air pollution if we switch those to electric. So you can see the stat there of the equivalency of using a gas leaf blower for an hour is the equivalent of driving 120 from a particulate.
So is this program limited to home owners?
No, you just have to be a Salt Lake City resident.
Okay, so if I had a commercial landscaping business, but I lived in Salt Lake City, I could participate in this. I could convert all of my lawnmowers to electric lawnmowers, all of my leaf blowers, even though I'm a commercial business where I, as the owner of the business, live in Salt Lake City.
So the state actually does have a commercial program, so I'd probably point you to that first. But in terms of our program, if you go to the next slide, these are the incentive levels that we have. We have a certain number of vouchers for recycling your equipment. So we want to get gas equipment out of the airshed, which is why there's a higher voucher amount for recycling. Or we do have an option for not recycling if, for new homeowners or people who just might not have equipment to recycle. So you can receive just one of the not recycling voucher, or you can receive up to $500 on the recycling amount. So if someone wanted to, take a lawnmower and a leaf blower and a string trimmer to be recycled, they could receive up to $500 in vouchers. What you do is we have an application online. So to answer your question, we just ask that you provide an address verification. So as long as you have an address, we're not asking if you're a commercial entity or a business. or you know, non-business, I suppose. So if you do have an address and you select your option, your vendor, you could.
And are you limited to one item of each? Can I bring in 10 lawnmowers?
No, because it's only a maximum of $500.
Oh, per applicant. It's a maximum of 5. I get
I think we're checking by household
Per house.
address.
And it's
by-
lottery, isn't it?
It's a lot.
Right, so you don't know that you're gonna get it.
That's the lottery. But I will point you to the state's program if that is indeed something you're interested in learning about.
What's the cost of the equipment? Is it through like a specific business you've partnered with to buy it, or is it just like a check people get in the mail and then,
Great question.
yeah?
So we.
Oh, there you are, you're next.
Yes, we are really excited because we were able to negotiate agreements with the Home Depot on 21st South, as well as 2 Ace Hardware locations. They're called the Ace Hardware locations owned by the same owner, Rockport South, and the one in the Marmalade. And two is you.
Okay, let me interrupt you again.
Yep.
No, for the record, Lucia has joined us.
And yes, Lucio.
Not Lucia, Alicia.
I know,
Sorry.
we need to figure something out about that.
Lucia.
Sia really.
Or just go Sia. How about Sia?
Sia, okay. Sia and Lucia is online. So everyone's here.
Lucia's online? Okay,
Yep.
great.
Sia 1, Sia 2.
Yeah, sorry, I was a
So-
little late.
So, this is pretty, you know, the main, task that folks have at the outset is that you need to select your vendor from the beginning, just because that's the rest of the workflow. So we have we have equipment lists for both Ace and Home Depot that are on our website. We just want to make sure people understand that, you know, they might need to get a certain size of lawnmower if they have a bigger lawn, because there are differences in performance with, you know, electric versus gas. But made it really easy. The recycling can just happen directly at the store. So you just go ahead, take your your equipment right to the store. They'll recycle it for you. They'll check that you received your acceptance email from the city. You'll verify that you are who you say you are, and then you'll get a voucher to purchase a new piece of equipment. So all of this is on our website, but
Are they accepting, like, if you have a gas can, like if you're getting rid of your gas powered equipment and you have a gas can that you could use to like refill it, are they accepting recycling?
they're not taking those, but depending on you know, if it's metal or plastic, you can recycle those. I think if it's plastic, you could put that in your regular recycling container. Actually,
I don't-
probably better to take it to the left, just take.
I think you have to take
Yeah.
gas and petroleum products directly to the landfill.
I was thinking if it's empty, but yeah, probably safest bet is
Still
to
has-
take it. Yeah, you want to take gas to the
Right.
household hazardous waste facility at the landfill, and oil. Oil can be taken there as well, or you can take oil to the O'Reilly Auto.
So you said it was by lottery. I don't understand how that works.
So I'll let Salvador explain that. Go ahead.
Yes, this lottery system allow us to allocate our resources to either communities or these people have been not taking advantage of these programs. So our goal is that we can allocate all those funding through the whole city. Through the whole city. That's why we decided to do it as a lottery.
So how does that work? Let me just give you a hypothetical. Let's assume that you have 5 applicants from the west side that submit applications and 500 applicants from the east side that submit applications. How are you going to allocate the $250,000?
We're gonna be looking, it's a little more complex just because there's the different vouchers for the different types of equipment, and then recycling versus non-recycling. But big picture, what we're looking to do is allocate around the same amount of money, ideally, across all of the council districts. So if we had 4 times as many apply from the east side as the west side, I don't know if we'll end up using all of our money, but we would end up, you know, probably granting all of the west sides. And if we have enough money.
So why are you doing it that way? I'm just curious. Why don't you say, okay, we want the money to be spread equally around all these council districts, so of the $250,000, the West Side Council, just for hypothetical purposes, gets 50,000. East Side gets 50,000, and then within, if you live within one of those districts and you apply, it's first come, first served.
I mean, I think it's probably in part just a limitation of our software. I think ultimately we're achieving the same goal of, you know, both getting equipment out of the airshed, but then also we've historically just faced a challenge reaching people on the west side.
Well,
When we-
you're not excluding them. You've allocated
Yeah.
$50,000 to that district. If only one person applies, they get 500, and you wait until enough people, and then your mission is to outreach, to encourage people within that district to apply. And that way you can allocate the whole $250,000 equally around the city.
I guess I'm not sure how it's different than what we're already
Well,
doing.
what you're doing is you're saying, in my hypothetical, you get 5 people from the west and 500 people from the east. And then you're exercising your administrative discretion as to how much money is going to support the program. When the real objective is to get all of those gas-powered machines, wherever they are in the city, out of the airshed. So you want to spend $250,000 every year.
Right, but this, I think two things, David. One is that communities aren't impacted by air pollution equally, right? So we have more impact of air pollution on the west side of Salt Lake City. And then I think the other thing to me that's good about the lottery is that, you know, outreach, if you do it first come, first serve, then the people who read the paper and hear about it first, like I read it in the paper this morning, so I got on and, you know,
Yeah.
did it. But people who have literacy challenges or don't speak English may not find out about it till later in the application period. So you have this open period where everyone is equal chance to apply. Because if you do first come, first serve, by the time the application closes, all the slots could be taken up. So I like that it's a lottery because then it puts everybody kind of on an equal footing. And then if you're trying to balance the neighborhoods, then also that does address some of the inequities that we know exist. And also people on the east side may be more able to purchase their own electric lawnmower than somebody on the
Those are,
side. If we're
those are
sort
good
of,
points, Pamela.
Yeah.
I heard that.
yeah.
Those are all the reasons that I'm sorry, I didn't really understand your full question, but those are all of the reasons that we are running it the way we're running.
So there's gonna be a period during which people can apply, and then after that, there's a lottery in terms of selecting the name.
Yeah, so right now it is open. It opened yesterday. It's open through the Sunday, the 12th at 11:59. And again, this is the first year we've done it. I'm sure we're gonna learn a lot. We're gonna continue to refine it. So please do give us your feedback.
Are you gonna talk about the outreach efforts?
Yeah,
Great,
Yeah.
that's what I wanna hear about because I also did the e-bike, so I love all these programs.
Yeah.
I've got the e-bike voucher too. But so many people I talked to, nobody knew that it existed. So
Yep.
like that, I think outreach to me is so important.
Yep.
absolutely.
These are great programs, and when I told people about it, they were like, what?
Yeah, and I would say that's our number one challenge, and that's exactly why when we've worked with the state on this program in the past, they do it as first come, first serve, and we had, you know, single digits participation from the west side. When we kept it open longer, just for the west side, we at least bumped it up to 25% participation. So this year we are, we don't know if we're gonna hit our targets. It always takes more work to do the outreach than would be ideal, but that's the nature of it. So let's go to the next slide because that's.
All right, real quick.
I had a quick question. Is there an income requirement or anything like that with this program?
Not for this program. I will talk about our e-bike soon, so.
Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up to speed. So what I'm understanding is landscaping equipment, whether it works or not, you'll take them.
We do want it to work.
We want it to
We
work.
don't want it to be broken because we really want to be taking something out of commission that was being used.
Okay, and then what my understanding is you're taking it to the 2 locations and then you're offering them a voucher. Is that like a payment voucher?
It's like a discount code that can be used. So this is a little bit more than I think would be good to explain in a presentation, but it's all on our website. so I can walk through this stuff. So basically, someone goes, they apply, they need to provide proof of address because we get a lot of people who think they live in Salt Lake City who don't live in Salt Lake City. Proof of address. And then we are taking, so application's gonna be open through the 12th. We're gonna get back to everyone by the 17th to say you were successful or you weren't successful. They'll have like a code that they take to either the Home Depot on 21st South, or if they chose one of the two, well, there's two of the Ace Hardware locations. If they're recycling their equipment, you make sure that the oil and gas has been safely removed and disposed of properly. You take the equipment to your Home Depot or your Ace to recycle, and then you'll get your discount code for your new equipment. So definitely a lot of steps. I think that's one barrier, no doubt. But that's how we're piloting it this year, and definitely open to your feedback and suggestions, both for this year as well as for future years. So I'll turn it to Salvador.
Perfect. Thank you, Sophia. So like I mentioned before, my name is Salvador, and today I will talk about the outreach efforts that we've been doing. So these are really impactful on our community because these initiatives are not just about spreading awareness. It's about fostering connection, empowerment, and engagement among our community. We're taking a multi-layered approach to ensure that every member of our city can participate and benefit from the resources and opportunities available to them. First, we've been distributing flyers across different key locations on the west side specifically, including community centers, libraries, and grocery stores. These flyers serve as a source of information, guiding individuals to resources that can improve their lives. Also, we've actively engaged with our community through taping events, whether it's festivals, gatherings, or local fairs. Like last time we've been in the West Side Coalition annual meeting, and we were spreading the word about all our programs. And that's where we can have a direct interaction with people, right? And in these interactions that we truly understand what people needs and have aspirations in their communities. We've embarked our journey as well with canvassing with Love Your Block team, knocking people's doors and have that face-to-face interaction with people and let them know that we're there. And that program allowed us to have a better understanding what people needs, how people react to these programs. Additionally, we've been partnering with the mayor's community outreach team, specifically for District 1 and 2, which have been historically experienced the lower quality index. So this collaboration ensures that all voices are heard and all concerns and every idea is considered. And let's not forget about the importance of inclusivity. We made a conscious effort to reach out to our Spanish-speaking population by broadcasting announcements on the Spanish-speaking radio stations, because everyone deserves to be informed and included, regardless of their language or background, like you said. Our West Side folks, they haven't been able to take advantage of these programs. So we're trying to focus on the communication with them, either through television and grocery stores, radio stations. So in essence, these outreach efforts are not just about spreading information. They're about bonding, fostering inclusion, and empowering each member of our community.
So that's very helpful. How long has this outreach been in process for this particular program? The window of application seems pretty short.
So
Right
I've
upon
been
us.
spreading the word with either emails or phone calls with organizations like Comunidades Unidas, Latinos in Action.
How long has this been?
Since
Great.
February. Yeah.
Okay, okay, so quite a while.
We've been trying to give them a heads up, hey, this is going to happen in the spring. We want to all your members of your organizations take advantage of this, so we're trying to
Okay.
do this beforehand.
Yeah, good. Okay.
So we have flyers that basically have a QR code where we have the website and we just ask people to sign up so they'd get an email notice when it went out. when it went
Right, right. Sort of.
But it's still really challenging. I mean, I think we're definitely, and we can take some feedback now if you have feedback.
Is the application in both English and Spanish? Okay, good.
I think it's also just hard. It's a digital literacy,
Right.
you know, conversation as well.
The application is pretty easy. I did it today.
Good. Yeah,
I would say the challenge for most people will be the proof of address, right? Because you have to like, you know, I had to get a PDF, take a picture, or get a PDF of like my bank and then sort of crop it so that you didn't see my bank information and then have only my address showing and then upload it. And so that, you know, obviously that's something I'm familiar with doing, but I think that's the challenge that people can have. And I don't know if there's another way other than that to verify people's address that might be easier.
We were considering system of like the bill system, but sometimes there's another company running that district or area, so it's more straightforward to request that type of
Right, and if
information. And we just want to,
renter, they may not pay the bill directly or have it in their name.
they might be renters or have a landlord or something like that, that takes of their bills. So we just need to verify that you put and it's on that.
I think that was the
Same.
only sort of
Why
tricky
couldn't you
part.
use a driver's license, an ID, or a passport? And not even require the number, just, I mean, not require even a picture, just put the number in. Put your driver's license number in, you got your address on your driver's license.
People, the mobility rate for some communities is, especially because of evictions and things like that, they don't, there's a lot of movement.
Right, they don't know.
But they have most people would have a driver's license or a passport or some sort of ID. We'll have an address
Right,
on
but
it.
the address might not be accurate or up to date.
Well, would a document like that, would you guys count that as?
yeah.
Okay, so you guys would,
Yeah, I think there was quite a few options like bank statement, utility bills.
Pretty much anything.
Yeah, pretty much anything with your address, it's official.
Yeah, I mean, other than just, I mean, I think one completely different model is if we just partnered with organizations directly and did some sort of exchange
Right.
that really didn't require people to go online and kind of go through those steps. I mean, that would be an entirely different model, which we could consider in the future, but that would be, you know, another way of doing it.
Or I wonder, I mean, have you looked at some of the organizations that you've done outreach? Are they gonna help, like, helping people? You know, the way you have to tax prep, things like that, that people could come to the Sorensen Center or come somewhere to an organization, bring their bill or their driver's license, they can be assisted in applying.
I think that might be something we could look at next year. I think this year, because it was the first year,
And then the live.
so many things that we knew we weren't gonna quite get it.
Yeah, no, I think these are great programs, just, I would love to see more people to be able.
Yes.
And just to wrap up the outreach part, myself, I speak Spanish, so people, every time that I speak with them, they're pretty receptive when somebody speaks their language. And like yesterday, I called this radio station to let them know the program was running, and they were just like, "Hey, do you want to go live on this program?" And I did like 3 minutes interview with the person from the radio, and I had a few calls from folks that were interested. Some of them, they were driving and they were listening to the radio. They were, oh no, I'm from Lehigh, I'm from Ogden. And I'm listening to this radio, but I just
Like,
heard about
Why does somebody have this?
landscaping equipment exchange program. Really interested, but yeah, people are very receptive about these programs.
All right, well, please feel free to reach out if you have any continued ideas on this program and talk about our e-bike program next. We don't have much longer. Oh, we already talked about this, but this was kind of the goals of our distribution. All right, next slide. Okay, so the second part of our Clean Air SLC program is the
Ashley.
It is, yeah, it's our e-bike rebate program. And also something that the mayor was really excited about and encouraged us to develop a program to propose to the city council for funding. And so that's what we did. And the goal is to make e-bikes more accessible and affordable. I think there's been a lot of programs across the country that have been popping up for e-bikes, Denver and Colorado being some of the primary examples of these. So there's just a flurry of interest, I'd say, and we're joining in, at least for this year. So the goal is to make e-bikes more accessible and affordable, in part because from a clean air perspective, we are hoping to encourage people to take those shorter trips, you know, those under 5 mile trips or under 3 mile trips by e-bike rather than by car, because you can make a good impact on air quality. You can also help people save money because it's expensive to own and maintain a car. You know, there's an accessibility component as well. So I think, you know, one of the questions that we've gotten from city council, and I think is on a lot of people's mind, is, well, how are you going to measure all of this? How are you going to be tracking the success of the program? And that's why we're doing, you know, this year as a pilot. So
What are you guys using certain things to track it? Or is there like things in?
we're still developing
Sure.
that. Love your
Okay.
suggestions.
I know, I'm even like, how do you, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one of the ways that Denver, short of having like some researchers affiliated with the university or whatnot, that are partnering some scientific research, which they've had in some communities. I guess we can always ask some people to do that.
Yeah.
But I know Denver has done just like participant surveys to say, how did you, you know, did you end up replacing your car trips with bike trips? How often did you do that? How many days per week did you use your e-bike? How many miles did you go? I think they even, for the first year, they even had a partnership with a company that put trackers.
That
was mine.
So this is not the second year, because
No.
I got
so
mine last year.
You Care, the organization You Care did it last
year.
Yeah.
It would be great if they sent like a follow-up survey to people that got the vouchers to find out how it,
Yeah.
their transportation, and if you did that, like, because you'll know who got the vouchers.
And I think we'll probably end up doing that. I think You Care, we just talked with them Friday. I think they're gonna send you some things.
Oh, okay.
Too, but yeah, there's all sorts of ways I think communities around the country are trying to figure out how to track these metrics, but we're excited. So this is what we're proposing for our voucher amounts. We are lucky in that there has been some good research coming out of Denver and Colorado, studies. Actually, I think it was nationwide, not just in those particular places, but some studies that said that surprisingly the voucher amount didn't need to be as high to change to encourage people to participate. And that this is perhaps not surprising, but the low income voucher, really hard to get people to take advantage of because they still ended up needing to buy the rest of the bike. That was often a limitation for folks. So they actually saw that moderate income amount shifted the purchase decisions the most. Because for those folks, it was enough to get them to participate, and also it was motivating because they're still crunched, right, financially, and it could make a difference in their transportation costs of using an e-bike versus using a car. So that's what we are proposing, is to have these 3 different tiers: the base voucher amount for people who are not, you know, those different moderate and low income levels, of $300 for basically city, commuter, and adaptive bikes. A little bit more for the cargo and utility bikes. You can see an example there of a cargo bike. We took all of these pictures of city staff. These are all city staff who have their own bikes, which is kind of fun around town. And then you can see the voucher amounts going up a little bit for those moderate and low income levels. So
Do the businesses or whoever you're partnering with, is there a program with them where they can do like payment plans for the remaining amount or anything, or is it a
Yeah.
paid outright?
That's a good question. I think, right now I know that UCare ended up, so UCare did a program last year. They just worked with Magnum, right?
Yeah,
And Magnum did that, maybe just for their second.
and those vouchers were like 1,000 plus.
They were definitely higher amount.
Yeah,
So one of the things we're trying to balance is just a limited amount of funding, trying to get our funding to go as much as possible, while also shifting those. Next slide. So it was very clear from both the city council as well as other feedback we've heard throughout the community. And we've talked with a lot of bike shops. We've talked with bike organizations, and just love, your feedback as well. That this isn't just about bikes. This is about helping people understand safety, as well as both in maintaining an e-bike as well as just safely using it on the roads. I mean, it's a little different, goes faster than a regular bike, helping refresh folks about the rules of the road. We've also heard a lot about just supporting just the safety and the storage of these e-bikes. Some of these issues are not things that we're going to be able to all inclusively solve with our program, but we're helping to spur some good programming and conversations through the program. So as an example, we'll be partnering with Bike Utah to offer, which is a nonprofit, to offer some e-bike classes for free. Technically, they're available to anyone. You don't have to be a participant of this program just to support some practice those bikes as well as etiquette. And then as the part of the e-bike,
Could you require someone to attend an education program before they qualify for a voucher, or before they get the voucher? And I don't know, so I see so many people riding on the sidewalks, on the wrong side of the road, without helmets, without lights. And it's a great program, but you don't want to increase fatalities in the process, right? Or pedestrian injuries. And if you required someone at least to take an education class before they got paid, at least that would be an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's not something we feel like we can do this year just because of needing to get the money kind of spent, and there's a lot of details, but I think if we're funded again, I think that will definitely be a question that we look at. And I know that other programs across the country have had people watch videos, like they've had to watch videos before they finish the process. So I think it's a balance of all of these, important priorities for sure. One of the things that we are doing as part of the process for selecting bike shops to partner with is asking them to provide some of these e-bike maintenance standards, I suppose. So we would like them to have some maintenance programs, offer a free 90-day tune-up, just help people, like after they buy the bike, understand, okay, well, now what? I don't know what to do, or your bike changes, your cable's loosen, and you might need some that maintenance after using it for a little while. Next slide.
So I had a question. I kind of represent the disability community on this board. So what when you said adaptive, what types of I mean, for instance, are you offering tandem bikes for people that might be blind?
I think that's a good question. I know there are, and I don't know if you know more about this, Salvador, but there are some adaptive bikes for people with disabilities that we wanted to make sure to include in the program. And, we don't, to my knowledge, we don't have a definition of what that is. I think we'd be looking to the bike shops to tell us what their inventory is.
There's an organization called, and you might know of this organization, it was called Utah Adaptive Sports.
Yeah, I know what they are.
Yeah, and that make bikes that are for people with disabilities, both road bikes and mountain bikes.
Yes.
And of course, they also make those sleds for people that are that are immobile below their waist, so they can ski, things like that. You've probably seen them on the slopes or heard about.
Mhm.
So they do have a whole line of bikes for people with various disabilities.
That's a good point. We'll reach out to them.
I just had one question. I saw on the previous slide, it said something about a safety. So is that gonna be something you're gonna try to do so that people, because helmets are really, really expensive. And then the other thing like that was included with the UCare program through Magnum was the beefiest lock I've ever seen in my life. Somebody tried to cut through it, like just literally tried to saw through it and couldn't. Because these bikes are so prone to theft.
Yep.
So especially for people who, you know, they're still putting in a lot of money of their own, and then if it were to get stolen, you can get the bikes, companies that you work with to include, and this lock was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It weighs like 10 pounds.
That's good to hear that they didn't consider it. Yeah, I think this is a concern that we've heard from city council and others too, is that
Especially people don't have garages, like
Yep.
we have a carport, and so, and we had to put up a camera, I mean,
Another.
so many issues with our
Is to
yeah, yeah.
people trying to
put
steal.
those tracker codes on these bikes in a way that is permanently affixed to the bike,
Mm,
that someone with a cell phone, just everybody nowadays, could track their own bike
mm.
by putting a tracker.
Well, I'm gonna do that.
Like not the license, is there like our?
No, you've seen an
AirTag.
AirTag, an Apple AirTag, maybe not. It's a little disc about that big.
They put it on keys too.
Yeah,
You can put it on your luggage,
Or
right, or in your luggage, and then you can just track on your phone, because it communicates with GPS, wherever that tracking device is, you can see it on your phone.
yeah.
How many people are coming in after?
Thank you.
So, sorry, I just
Yeah.
was thinking about the processes. There's, and I'm sure you guys have heard with CPS techs with the county. Well, it's a nationwide program with the car seats
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
where they have checkpoints.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't help but think maybe you guys looking into their model. and-
Yeah, yeah, like other, and for this, for this year, we've been really trying to focus some of that, onus, putting it on the bike shops to be able to participate with us, to make sure that they are offering some of those resources, but I do think if there's kind of other entities that would make sense, that's a thing to think about, that could help with that. And that's also why we're partnering with Bike Utah. So, right. Yeah, definitely all things we're thinking of, and they're complex issues for sure. So,
We've gone a little bit over
Yeah.
an hour.
Sorry.
No, not apologizing, I'm just trying to keep this on track. So I'm just gonna ask you to kind of move it
Yep.
forward.
Yeah, well, we're almost done. These are our next steps where we sent out our initial application to bike shops. We received 8 initially interested, and we're kind of working on the next step. So this is an example of a cargo bike that Tom Millar takes his 2 kids around it, which is really cool. Has a car seat locker. So, and then we're probably, it's gonna end up being more like mid to late June, maybe early July, but that's what we're targeting for the launch. And then real quick, I'll just go through the air quality part of it. This is the last part of our program. We have 30,000.
One quick question, is this also a lottery system?
Yeah. And this one does have those various income verification.
Okay.
Last part of our program is the indoor air air quality tools program. This is just to say that, people think a lot about outdoor air quality, but actually spend most of our time indoors. And the impact of indoor air quality is pretty significant. So next slide. I won't go through all of this, but these are all this EPA slide. This is just all of the different ways that different sources of pollution for your indoor air. Next slide. And what we're hoping to do with this program is to distribute equipment to immediately improve indoor air quality. We haven't been able to spend as much time on this one. We just had the funding released in March. We've been focused on the e-bike and the landscaping, but this one has a lot of potential to make a difference immediately in people's lives. You can do things with certainly air purifiers, what you're plugging in. Furnace filters also can make an immediate difference, although you have to kind of have someone help you figure out whether the furnace that you have is compatible with the higher rated filters. Induction cooktops, also something you can plug in, countertop style, because gas stoves create a lot of indoor air pollution. And then just a monitoring program, helping people kind of see the immediate impact of their activities around their indoor air quality, as well as some of, you know, how these other tools are helping improve it. So right now, if you go to the next slide, we are planning to work through our existing housing programs, through the handyman program and home repair program, to help distribute some of these, but we definitely need more ideas around how to roll out this program. So there.
Question for this program, or is it like a matter of you guys have the money, you have the equipment and the funding for it, but it's people don't know about it, so they're not requesting it? Is that?
And it's the first year for all of this.
So it's
We haven't even,
Yeah,
we haven't fully finished designing the e-bike program.
Got it.
The indoor air quality one is the last of the three that we're working on. So yes, I do think with all of these, it will be still an outreach challenge.
how many from talking about the e-bike program, how many from, what was that organization called? You Care. How, did they see like a big surplus in people who applied versus bikes that were available? Like what was the interest versus like what they could give?
I know, well, I don't know if this is your question, but exactly, but they did, basically they had, did they get 800 bikes on 800 bikes on the road, which was great. And that was about 30% of the total number of people who, a lot of people
So,
apply and then.
but couldn't get it. Are you guys anticipating, oh, they don't follow through? Okay.
And like, if you didn't want your voucher, you're supposed to let them know so like, if you weren't gonna use it, you were supposed to let them know so they could award it to somebody else, but I'm sure a lot of people didn't. The indoor air pollution to me is so interesting because I think that's one, like, there's probably so much education that needs to happen just around the existence of indoor air pollution, because that's not most people think of. They think of, I mean, I know there was that whole big gas stove sort of hoopla for a little while there, but most people think about, like, you know,
Outdoor.
air pollution and cars and.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're planning to create some materials that can be distributed along with the tools. That talk about that. The good and the bad news about indoor air quality is that people can make a big difference just with their own behaviors and what they use in their homes, how they cook, how they ventilate, what kind of cleaners they use, how they vacuum, whether they burn wood or candles or, you know, whatnot. And then certainly outdoor air pollution does make its way in, particularly during wildfire smoke episodes, is the most persistent. Wintertime pollution, not quite as much of a problem. If you're near highways, diesel pollution is a problem. So anyway, yes, we could come back and talk all about this. Sorry, Michelle.
One last question for me. When would be the best time for your guys' process for all these programs for us to be able to come back and like weigh in on maybe some potential ideas, like at a good time?
That's a good question. I mean, anytime you want us back, I guess we can come back. That's really up to you.
Is there a point in your timeline though, where you're like, okay, this is where, you know, maybe the council, this is where we can make changes to the program, like
Yeah.
scooter kind
That
of
would be
idea?
nice.
Yeah.
And I would really be interested, in addition to Will's question, and you coming back maybe before the end of the year with some accountability report. How well, because this is a Human Rights Commission, how well did your program actually reach people of lower incomes? How well does it reach people that are Spanish speakers, et cetera? So that you can do some self-evaluation and we can also hear what's happening in the community and maybe give you some suggestions.
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it would be great immediately after the landscaping program and the e-bike program roll out while it's fresh to get feedback.
Okay.
That
month would be like when-ish?
Let's call it like late summer, early
Okay.
fall. How about that? Yeah, I'm not sure because you guys only.
We want you to go out and do your work.
Now you just want.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I really appreciate everyone's time and just.
Oh, thank you.
All your
Cool programs.
great. We're excited to have these. So.
I just wanted to quickly plug in, of course, he was mentioning we're the Human Rights Commission. With the landscaping piece of it for Pacific Islanders and the Latin community, it's a very common career choice.
Yes.
So I think that piece of it, and of course, we know on the west side, it's flooded with Pacific Islanders and Latin community. And then on the bikes, that's the same thing. This is my health coalition side coming out of me, but Pacific Islanders suffer from a lot of, even though we're very sports people, right? But then once, it's the folks that are not taking advantage of like resources like this. So I'm very interested in partnering for some outreach on that.
Wonderful.
Thank
That's great. Do you have any flyers left upstairs?
Yes.
We'll bring some, we
Yeah,
forgot to bring
we'll
our
bring
flyers.
some.
We'll bring some down too, if you wanna
Okay.
have anyone to get.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and going over a little bit.
Thank you
For
so
com-
much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
I know we didn't talk about.
No, it's okay. I think that maybe at the end of something.
We're gonna bring back.
So I
some flyers.
originally had.
Thank you.
I got an invite.
We'd like to now turn
They're excited
our
about it.
attention to the city's board for a report from them. We've allocated 30 minutes on our schedule for this report. It's now 6:25. So if you can expedite it a little bit. Because
Just estimated time.
I understand. I understand. But I would like our meeting to conclude somewhere close to 7 o'clock.
He's our timekeeper.
Hey, man.
That's right.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Because it makes. So this one went completely.
Yeah, that was.
We have to figure out how we can balance questions in the future
Well,
to get.
That's why I asked at the beginning.
And just sharing your time so everyone else should get it as well, but
Right, okay.
yes, we passed the floor. Just tell me when to go to the next slide.
Okay, we'll try to move it quickly. Yeah, if we want to save questions for the end, that will probably help. And you can find, Michelle, I'm going to put in the chat. Oh, this is a direct message. I'm going to send it to you and you can forward it to the board, our website for this program in case there are any additional questions. So my name is Katie Matheson. I'm the Marketing and Research Manager for the Department of Economic Development, and I'm also a diplomacy officer for the city. And one of like my surprise joys when I got my job was finding out that I got to manage the Sister Cities program. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background before we move on. Like I said, when I joined the city, I was assigned this program, and one of the first things we had to do was update the ordinance and kind of reinvigorate the program. The city's involvement with it had kind of ebbed and flowed over a number of years, and it was Mayor Mendenhall's assignment that we got it back, got it going. And so that's what we did. We got a new board last summer. Ross is our board chair, and he'll be speaking in a little bit. And we have a really incredible group of folks who are very passionate about the program, and a lot of them have deep personal connections to the program. And then when Michelle and I met, I think this past winter at an event, we were talking about our different boards, and there seemed like there was a clear overlap. So I'm grateful to Michelle for inviting us to present. And also Michelle and Ashley presented to our board a number of months ago. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for crossover. Next slide. So real quick history, the Sister Cities program was established in 1956 by President Eisenhower. That's when it was officially established. Although my understanding is that the first Sister City was actually established in the 1930s between, I think, Ohio and Spain. But President Eisenhower, who had been a war general, found a need for peace through people, and that's the slogan of the program. And it was post-World War II, obviously, but also during the Cold War. And there was this desire for people connected to people to be deeply connected. And the idea is that when you are deeply connected to someone across the globe, it's harder to go to war with them, especially when you know them deeply, you understand their culture, you've interfaced with them, and all of that. So go ahead to the next slide. The purpose of the program, like I said, is can be kind of distilled down into one line, which is peace through people. It's also a community's international salutation. It can help lead toward global integration, using new technologies and techniques to support economic connection, democratization, and the environment. And these programs and their volunteers represent all facets of a city, and all aspects of a society, diversity, history, and our ambitions. Right now, we're in an interesting moment in time where globally, and even like the State Department, there's a lot of emphasis on what's called subnational diplomacy, which is diplomacy that is done not at the federal level, it's done at a state level, at a county level, and at a city level. And there is this this desire to connect mayors that I have found that has been really interesting and fun to watch and to be a part of. And of course, this is not done in a vacuum. We all are probably aware that there's a high likelihood that Salt Lake City will host the 2034 Olympics. And so with this 10-year on-ramp to the Olympics, having a budding and growing and reinvigorated sister city program will allow Salt Lake City kind of to establish who it wants to be to the world, and to find further purpose from this program. Next slide. So like I said, the program is just kind of awakening again. It's being reinvigorated. We've had an active board for the whole time, but the city's kind of involvement in it is really growing right now. And so what you'll find is we have some programming going, but there's also a lot of opportunity for growth in our programming. We currently have 6 active sister city relationships. You'll see them listed there, and Ross is going to go through each of them individually. We also have 3 emeritus sister city relationship, which means that they're just inactive. We've had some that went inactive prior to when I was born, but we still consider them like emeritus sister cities. And then the way that we think about the programming for something like this, literally when the world is your oyster, you kind of have to put things into buckets. And so we think about it in terms of economic development, diplomacy, of course, educational enhancement, humanitarian aid, civic engagement, and one that didn't make it to the slide but is very important is cultural connection. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Ross, and he's going to walk you through our 6 sister cities.
Okay. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you again for inviting myself and Katie to come and speak with you all. And I see a lot of familiar faces, and I wish, perhaps another time we could come in person and present that way. But I will just take a few moments to present kind of just brief updates on sort of where we are. We each with each of these individual sister city pairings that we have with the city, and then we'll be happy to entertain your questions after. So maybe we can move to the next slide, actually. It's got more text. Okay, so we'll just start off. So briefly, this past year, and these updates are really just from this past year, but starting with Torino, Italy, this is the relationship that was started in 2007. There was kind of, I guess, initially a link with Torino or Turin and Salt Lake as both Olympic host cities, and so there was that interest in that pairing to begin with. There seems to be a lot of interest and potential in this relationship as far as, like I said, the kind of the winter sports history and exchanges, and also just tourism and cultural exchange. We haven't had a lot of engagement with this city in particular, and I think it's just, I think it's just we're looking for the right opportunities. Been seeking. We had some initial contacts with their mayor's administration early on, but it's kind of ebbing and flowing. Yeah, and then moving to Matsumoto, which is kind of actually the relationship that got me most interested and involved in sister cities. And I'll just say it is Salt Lake's oldest international relationship. This relationship was formed in 1958. How I got involved is, so growing up, my father worked for Mayor Ted Wilson's administration, and it was kind of a relationship that we started as a family hosting students from Japan in our home every summer, and it kind of became a regular thing. It was a very active relationship in the 1980s and 70s, and there was a lot of sub relationships that formed out of it between Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and KSL Broadcasting and Nagano Broadcasting and Chambers of Commerce. And there were almost visits going back and forth every year. And yeah, very active relationship. There was city employee exchanges in the 1980s. Where we had a city employee from Salt Lake go to Matsumoto for 3 months and learned about their system of government and talked to them about how zoning is conducted. And it was actually something that they kind of utilized or used for their own city after that. And they actually also built a performance hall that was modeled off the tabernacle, like a pipe organ. So a lot of interesting exchanges with that history, with that relationship. It's still very active. And there was a lot of students from Japan that would come visit Salt Lake every summer. They would dance in the Matsumoto Bonbon and the Days of 47 parade and do picnics with the Japanese American Citizens League community here. So I was fortunate to be able to live in Matsumoto for 4 years teaching English and actually married someone who grew up there. So kind of married into it. So very, very active still with that city. Okay, well, let's go to the next slide or two, and I'll just continue the updates with this. Okay, so with Trujillo, Peru, this past year is kind of interesting. We were in contact with some city administrators as far as looking to see what would exploring feasibility of doing a firefighter training exercise, specifically with airport firefighting fighters. There was an incident at their airport where there was there was an accident and there were some firefighters who died, and it was just kind of came down to some basic training exercises, and they requested a training to happen, and that may still pan out possibly in this next year, but there was some discussion about that. There was also an exchange of where there was an art event and through the Leonardo, and also maybe Katie, you can jump in too. I think their consul general was visited.
Yeah, so we had a delegation about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago, including members of their Congress, come to Utah. It was a pretty big deal. And that was when the request for firefighter support came. It was at the airport in Lima, although they also do have an airport in Trujillo. And so the idea is to help train both of those firefighter groups. You may have heard of a consul general. It's a local person, a person who is, it's kind of like an ambassador, but there's more of them. It's not just like one per country, it's for a region. And so they are appointed by their government. So there is a consul general for all of these countries that we're talking about, and they are located sometimes in San Francisco, and that covers Utah, sometimes in Los Angeles, sometimes in Denver. But Utah actually now has 3 consuls general, which is a formalized, professionalized office that serves this population, and it helps them with things like visas or paperwork, things like that. Peru, it's been put on hold for various reasons, but Peru is about to get the Utah's 3rd consul general. We currently have one from Mexico. You've probably seen the Mexican consulate here in Salt Lake City. That's been around for a long time. Last year, we got one for El Salvador, and now Peru will be the 3rd.
Yeah, thanks, Kitty. Yeah. And then just I'll just move quickly to we're in an interesting and sort of awkward position in that we have a sister city in Ukraine and a sister city in Russia right now, and so as you can imagine, there hasn't been a lot of activity with either sister city because of the conflict happening between those countries. But I know that this past year there was a letter of solidarity that was sent from city leadership to our partners in Ukraine shortly after the conflict began. Also, there's been some sort of interesting interactions specifically coming from, I'm trying to remember how that got started, but there were, as I'm sure that you're all aware, that there are a number of folks who are refugees from Ukraine currently living in our state. And there were some questions as far as difficulties with acquiring driver's licenses, and also questions as far as how they could find better opportunities for more advanced English lessons. And so we, those questions came through us. Not sure exactly why, but they were probably because of the sister city pairing. And so we tried to put them in touch with the state's designated office that's working with refugees from Ukraine to address the driver's license question, and also provide them with opportunities for English language learning. So those kind of came up indirectly because of the sister city relationship, which was interesting. We did also learn that there's in other sister cities within the U.S. that have relationships with cities in Ukraine. They've also been struggling with how best to proceed with this kind of with the relationship. I know that there's sort of been third party, sort of like almost like micro exchanges through like basically trying to connect with people in Ukraine who might be in need of things, and supplies and goods and that kind of thing. That's not something that we ventured into, but we were made aware of that was something that was going on. But for the most part, we've just been kind of taking letting the State Department take the lead as far as any interaction that goes with that, with that relationship currently. And let's just go to the next two slides, and I'll just summarize just the last two cities updates. So I mentioned Ivzhevsk, Russia, formed in 2011. Again, that relationship's really on hold right now. And then finally, Keelung, Taiwan. We've had a relationship, a sister city relationship with them since 1979. That relationship's been interesting primarily because it's had consistently strong relationship between the two police departments. And in fact, I think past police chiefs have actually made trips to visit Keelung and find different ways that the city police forces could find ways to exchange ideas or training or best practices. And I know that there have been groups from Keelung who have made trips to Salt Lake often during the summer as official visits. So that relationship has been pretty active also in the past. And but like Katie said, these relationships ebb and flow quite a bit. So with that, I'll leave it there, and happy to entertain any questions that you all might have.
I just have one quick question for the two of you. First of all, thank you for the presentation. When you say there's a relationship between Salt Lake City and these other cities, what does that really mean? I mean, is there an ambassador person designated in Salt Lake City to be the ambassador for Salt Lake with this other city, and therefore a concomitant ambassador in that city that the two people talk to each other, or a committee of people designated to the city? I mean, how does it actually work? Because these cities are millions of people.
Yeah. So I'll give an answer, and I don't know, Russ, if you have a follow-up. The curse and the joy of this program is that it's like it can be anything. The way that I have found that it works is usually there's a connection government to government. So like somebody in my role, I have to find that person in our sister city. And so I'm that my title currently is diplomacy officer. And so you find someone whose job is international relations, which is often what the position is called. And then you work together, but then also your boards can work together. They're also, it's meant to be decentralized. That's kind of the point of the program. And so like Ross said, our relationship with Keelung, Taiwan is based largely on the relationships between the two police departments. there used to be a pen pal program that was really strong, and we're actually in the process of trying to revive that program for each of our 6 sister cities with a class in Salt Lake. And so it can look like any and all of these things. In some cities, their sister cities program is run by a nonprofit. Here we have it in the government. But then also the boards can connect as well. So like Matsumoto, a number of their sister cities committees came here and have longstanding relationships that span decades with folks who have managed the relationship here. So it kind of depends. But when you're looking for like a formal like speaker for sister cities, you'll actually see on this picture right here, you'll see Mayor Gahn, who's there in the front left next to Mayor Mendenhall. And the two of them had an incredible time connecting as kind of diplomats for their cities. And even though they spoke like none of the same language, Mayor Gahn spoke no English, Mayor Mendenhall speaks no Japanese, but through an interpreter, they spent a lot of time connecting as mayors and talking about the folks in their cities. And one of the things that they connected over actually was environmental concerns. They're both very concerned about climate impact on their communities. So oftentimes it is a formalized position with the mayor. I don't know, Ross, if you have something to add.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good summary. I would just say that, yeah, the Sister City Committee and the city generally is just a facilitator of these relationships. And the relationships really are between citizens who are engaged because of one reason or another, because of usually personal experiences. And essentially, these are volunteer relationships because people between the two cities are passionate about continuing them, about keeping them going. And that certainly has been the case with Matsumoto and with Keelung and a lot of these other cities, that they wouldn't really exist if it weren't for some very passionate and engaged citizens. I think the relationships certainly have the figureheads. We have the mayors who will do the official meetings and whatnot, and that's all very important. But I think when it comes down to it, I mean, the purpose of Sister Cities, as Katie mentioned early on, and I think it was very intentionally created by the Eisenhower administration, is to really kind of go around governments to some degree, with the thinking that citizens could potentially do a much better job if they can of avoiding future conflicts if they can build strong relationships with each other. So no matter if certain administrations come and go or governments change, that there still be that person to person, that people to people tie. So that's really been the goal, and just trying to achieve that, keep those relationships going, is part of the challenge, but also sometimes it can work pretty well. I think we've been able to see. So
one final question. Are these relationships formalized in some way? That's part one. And second question is your group exploring relationships with additional cities?
Yeah, so they are formalized. The process for becoming a sister city is it's kind of like dating. So you date for 3 years as a friendship city. And then if there is enough interaction and interest, then it's formalized with like an MOU and a resolution. And then everybody signs it and there's a little celebration. And then you're married for life. For actually generations.
So that means there never has been a divorce.
So there's no polygamy here. You can't be a sister city with multiple cities and.
They are.
Well, we have 6 sister
Practicing
cities.
polygamy, what are you talking about? That's another
Like I said, there are some relationships do go into emeritus status, and it's because there has been no connection for 30 plus years. And at that point, you're like, all right, we honor you and we respect it, but the relationship is no longer active. And so, but I mean, Matsumoto has been our sister city for 65 years. We just celebrated our 65-year anniversary. And then what was your second question? I'm sorry.
Forming relationships with additional foreign cities.
Okay.
So
currently we actually have a number of applications in, because there's an application process, but because like I said, we're reinvigorating the program, we're readjusting how we accept sister cities, we take it very seriously because these relationships do have to last for a long time. And we want to make sure that there is sufficient community support for the relationship, that the relationship makes sense, that there is programming, there's a way for us to connect with each other. But so once we establish how we want to look at these relationships and think about them and think about them so that it's fair to everyone who is involved, we will then go through the process of accepting potential future relationships. Currently, 6 is a lot to manage, so I don't think that we're. I mean, there are a few cities that I personally think as like a staff member that it would be super interesting to have a relationship with, particularly because of the demographics of Salt Lake City. I think some cities make more sense than others. For example, a city in Mexico would make a ton of sense because there are a ton of people in Salt Lake who hail from Mexico. And there has been recent interest from a city in Tonga. So that also would make sense.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, what about the Pacific Island?
Yeah, so I did have a call with someone recently who is very interested. She's currently in conversations with Provo. They might go with Provo. But depending on how that conversation goes, she may come to us. So like I said, we're on hold, but if one final thing to note is that the way that some governments do it is they kind of propose a relationship to a government, and the new ordinance requires that the recommendation for a new sister city has to come from an individual or an organization that is headquartered within Salt Lake City. And the reason why is we want to emphasize that like it has to connect to the community. It has to be something that can be maintained and is of interest and desire to the community. So it could be like an individual, like if it was somebody from Mexico, it could be an individual who hails from Guadalajara and really wants that relationship to be connected. They don't have to come from there. They could just want to recommend it. Or it could be, Swazo Business Center or whomever, an organization that is headquartered in Salt Lake, and they could put forward the proposal.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. It's very interesting, and I wish you a lot of success. It sounds like you
Thank
got a
you.
lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay,
We didn't
thank you.
mention anything about
Right.
all the. Well, like what, like had a relationship with them for years.
Yeah, for decades. And
So what's been accomplished?
what's
right?
been
Yeah.
marked, what's been the marked impact? But it didn't sound like they had that answer, so.
Sounds like they're trying to figure it out.
Like the other. Yeah.
When they're after, the questions started coming out, I was like.
I know, I was thinking about that too. I was wondering.
They did say the environmental.
Okay, so in the interest of time,
But they didn't think they talked highlight.
turn
Like
the,
it's smoggy, yes. It's smoggy here. Calling it.
in the interest of time, I'd like to turn the time over to Michelle
Yes.
to give us an update on the process for forming these priority subgroups and our next community plan.
Okay, I just want to add, if you guys have any questions about the board, I think it's a good partnership in terms of when we think of human rights, it didn't start here in the US. It started with the United Nations, so we just want to incorporate how we can kind of overlap collaboration working. I heard some of your questions, like what is the impact? How can this commission be helpful or be a source to kind of helping this board? This board was just revived as well, I think within the last year. So moving on to process for priority subgroups, it's actually, since you all have individual tasks, I probably took the subgroups part. So disregard that, it's just the process for priorities. I just want to know what would be helpful for you. Some of you all are harder to reach than others, month to month. So what does this look like? I want it to be a collaborative effort. Clearly, we don't have much time to go over this too much, but what would be helpful in starting what would be the easiest route? Right now, Will has been gracious to work closely with me in terms of looping you all in with the transmittal process and getting ahead of things. So it's not like this presentation today or other presentations we've had where it's kind of like presenting to you. Again, other departments have been better than others because I think it's just some people sometimes don't think about the Human Rights Commission. It's been around for a long time, but how can we get to the forefront of the department's minds? So I am working with the chief of staff and chief administrative officer on that as well, on the back end. They think it's a great idea to get the Human Rights Commission involved. It's just, what does this look like? So right now, we're gonna do research on different HRCs across the nation, probably more comparable cities, but the more info, the better in terms of what does this look like? Cause I know some HRCs, they handle discrimination complaints. I don't think we're there yet for Salt Lake City.
We used to,
Yeah, oh,
Really?
yeah, so,
Good.
yes,
it was really hard.
yeah.
I would not recommend it.
Were you guys collecting those for the city ordinance though, for the non?
Yes, was it like for the housing and?
Well,
Employment?
because generally, like.
Oh,
when
okay.
we
you guys were still doing it. It was you guys.
Discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. but
Yes,
Then that happens.
So that.
I know. I was leaning more towards maybe not that, maybe some kind of like appeal process or like if they need a body, but. I don't know. I think right now you guys are in the community engagement space of
Totally.
this lifetime for the HRC.
It's better.
Yeah,
And if,
you have that feedback too, so that's good
Yeah.
feedback. You've seen both sides.
true. And if I could say something about the whole transmittal thing, I think the idea is that that they'll send us the transmittals and our different issues, and then that way, before it's going to city council and before they're really kind of starting to digest on it, it will go to each one of us for like, this is kind of my idea, and I'm curious to know your feedback. We've all got our separate categories, right? Like affordable housing, belonging in the city. So whenever something inside of these transmittals has to do with that, it gets sent to you. You can look at it, not only so we're can be in front of the departments, but so we also are ahead of it on our end of things. Because I think right now, maybe some of us are feeling like, where exactly can we plug in immediately?
Yeah.
And I think that this will kind of start to give us ideas of, okay, this is happening in the city. Well, I can plug in here, and then kind of give in some more.
So
That's my thought on it.
is your idea that Michelle would do that sorting out?
So we're working.
Well,
that-
plugin is
yeah.
hard for me. I can tell you that too. So I'm trying to work with. you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like the idea.
Yeah.
of Getting active early. But there's sorting out that has to happen.
Totally. So we're doing that right now. We're looking at what other cities are doing with their human rights commissions as far as, because there are other cities that do kind of have this whole idea similarly. So you talked with, who was it, the mayor's chief of staff?
Yeah.
And they're on
And
it.
chief
They
administrator.
just want us to come and see what other cities have done and maybe present that to them. So we're working out the process with the mayor's. Good, yeah.
Like just some of their preliminary ideas is either serving on the policy review board or having kind of like if they have a step-by-step list for departments, like a checklist, one of the questions would be, has this been taken to the Human Rights Commission?
That would be good.
So we kind of have to develop that process and, give it.
And then as part of that, I wonder if, because as I know that, there's, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
There's a process to look at existing ordinances.
Yes, there
Right?
is, yeah.
And can we plug into that as well, so that we, I think that's actually where we find more,
Probably, yeah.
have
Well,
more impact or influence than.
I wonder-
more stuff just because of who.
Yeah, are you talking about like at the point when maybe the council revisits some of the stuff and amendments can be made and stuff like that? I wonder if that's part of the transmission.
Okay,
Revisiting.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Okay,
I'm curious.
So will be a transmittal process. Any
Okay.
current ordinances, that would just be on our,
Yeah,
and I can get that link too. It will just be on a website of everything we have.
Are there particular ordinances that we might want to look at and see if they should have more of a human rights focus added to them? Is that what you're thinking? Because they're already they already
Yeah.
exist.
right, yeah,
Like
no,
finding a
so
gap.
this is, let me maybe give this example, at the Salt Lake School District. It's where I know well how this functions, and that is that, there's all of the policies that govern how the district functions. And every 3 to 5 years, they bring one of those policies up and just take a look at it.
okay.
And so I'm wondering if there's a process like that, where policies that currently exist, ordinances that currently exist, if they are, if they like systematically look at those policies. And that would be an opportunity for us to look at some of the. And also some of the stuff that from the past that I think is gonna be more egregious than things that are happening currently.
Sure. I think, should we ask in our meeting on, should we just kind of inquire about that and see if that fits into it?
So nothing with any, like viewing anything online, you don't think that would be solved?
If they don't have a process like that, then yes, I think we should
Yeah.
come up with our own systematic way of doing
Yes.
it.
One thing I learned with the city is we develop a lot of our own processes,
Yeah.
like,
But
And
so I could.
maybe, or, and the online, one question I would have maybe for your meeting is, you're saying that in the school board, they have this sort of 3 to 5 year thing.
Mhm.
Is there a way to see which ordinances haven't been sort of revisited in a certain amount of time? Because those would
Yeah.
be ones, like you're saying, that might have some stuff that like, not much.
Just
maybe that should
Or
be
maybe it
looked at.
already exists.
Super
a little bit,
outdated.
Like.
Because even ours, the Human Rights Commission is pretty outdated. Like the reports at the end of the year are supposed to be employment and housing
Mhm.
specific, but I've kind of been rolling with it. I mean, the attorneys haven't said anything. I talk about everything you all have done, but it started because of employment and housing discrimination,
Mm.
specifically against the LGBTQ community.
So you're saying the bylaws are.
Yeah, like in the ordinance. those said-
Ordinance.
Yeah, it says.
So maybe that's something we put on our, and just work on it slowly.
Yes. Trust me, I am always here for slow and steady. I'm never ever gonna try to rush you all. I know that you are busy and I understand that. I just wanna see how we can get progress going, cause I'm sure you all wanna feel successful. I know, cause I've had commissioners who did not finish the 4-year term because it's just not where they would like to see themselves.
so
So,
I have 2 suggestions.
yes.
First is, and these are, I'd love to hear input from everyone on. The 2 suggestions are, number 1, is there a way that we can formalize involvement of this commission before an ordinance goes to the city council for approval? In other words, a checklist.
Yeah.
Have you checked the box? If you haven't checked all the boxes, then it doesn't go to the city council. And one of those boxes is review. Has this ordinance been reviewed by the Human Rights Commission? If we could get that process in place, at least we get a say
Yeah.
in what the ordinance is that's being proposed.
Yeah.
That doesn't have anything to do with existing ordinances, okay? Second thing I think we could do, you could do for us, because that was really your question, is we've all got specific areas of interest that we've agreed to be responsible. If you could point us to a person in the city government that has a comparable role or a like role in city government, we can develop a relationship. Each of us could develop a relationship with that person to get updates, to find out what's current, to find out what thinking is, et cetera, and be able to report back. So for instance, on homelessness, I know Andrew Johnston is the point person for the city that deals with all those issues. I've already established a relationship with him, and I intend to further that relationship so that he knows who I am. He knows that I'm interested in what he's doing. He can share with me what he's got in the hopper and things like that. But if everyone on this commission had a similar person in their respective area of interest, I think that would be helpful.
I like that.
Yeah, these are.
And then we can give updates. So-
Yeah. These are kind
Well,
of
I
my
have
thoughts
that
on
as
it.
well with the Ashley Lichtel, with our ADA coordinator. So I've established that long-term relationship with her and on disability services and disability rights.
I'm doing that with education.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
so some people are, okay, others who do need to get connected.
Yeah.
For real, for real. Okay, if I text or email, to set up something, to like have that warm handoff, I need a response, cause that's me, that's.
You can identify the people.
Right,
Send
but send it in a group email,
You
like,
can send it in a group or individually.
Yeah,
okay.
maybe a
I
different.
just wanna make sure it's being received, that's all I need to know from you all, even if it's a thumbs up. I just need to make sure, okay, this is the help that you all.
Well, I mean, the way we set this up, and it's always subject to change, but the way it's supposed to work is that we're meeting every other month.
Mhm.
And in the interim month.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on.
Like talking to
the relationship.
people, we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going on in the community, et cetera.
Yeah, well, I think that's where that process that we'll start to hash out, like you talked about, what could that check be? Like, I think that this could potentially be a version of that. And then when we are getting these issues, like, it's one thing to just meet, a point person in a topic you're at, but actually having something like that concrete, that tangible thing, like, for example, adding scooters into the e-bike program, right? Like things like that. So I think that this will almost answer the second thing of connecting with people. I think they kind of go hand in hand, like they're a little bit intuitive with one another.
Died on scooters last month.
Did they? How many people died on bikes though?
Dangerous. Oh, good.
Yeah,
Well, they're also dangerous because people don't follow the rules because there are no rules.
yeah.
Yeah,
Scooters.
I was.
They're
gonna
also
say-
dangerous because people leave them in the sidewalks and people with
Yeah.
pedestrians,
Yeah,
we
I
can't get
know.
around them at
Dangerous
all.
for a
So
lot of
I always
frustrating.
move them when I see one in the sidewalk, I always move
They
it.
put it right in the middle.
Yeah, but people just leave it right in the middle of the sidewalk. Like, really? What if?
So have we answered your question, Michelle?
Yes, I want to hear what you were gonna say.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, having has the Human Rights Commission seen this on every single ordinance?
No,
would
too
be
much.
a way to Everybody, a
Absolutely.
lot of people.
Absolutely.
And so I think there needs to be, like, what you've already said and what you're working on, I think that we need to embed, like, identifying the topic of what the ordinance is, because otherwise we're looking at,
So much stuff.
like, planning,
So it's not relevant.
And they probably, that's not gonna help their
You're
system.
right, you're right, and I beg to differ in part.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of ordinances that impact human rights. For instance, the city is going through a major rewrite of its zoning code right now, where it's eliminating almost every zone in the entire city and consolidating what is hundreds of zones into 7 zones that'll impact development throughout the city in the future. So go from 100 to 7, that's gonna have an impact on various populations. And it's gonna have an impact on the nature of
Are they-
community.
Are the districts drawn by the council districts or no? Different zones, like the zones aren't.
Oh, no, they're not, that has no relationship to
That
council
how-
districts.
that what.
It has to do with, it's principally.
Well, I get,
Principally designed.
are you saying 7 different types or 7
Seven
different
different
areas?
zones, 7
Okay.
different types of zones.
Okay.
So they have commercial zones.
Totally. Mixed
Residential
use.
zones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So now all the hundreds of zones that we currently have for those various different uses, different size requirements, setback requirements for different kinds of lots and different communities. Think of all of that being consolidated into 7 zones.
So it's the idea that you can build more in.
The whole idea, the
Functions.
purpose of this.
Yeah.
Is to expedite development. To shorten, to make it easier to develop, presumably develop affordable housing, make it easier, quicker to develop it and make it less expensive for developers.
Got it.
That I have, you do about that, because it may just be about putting money in the pockets of developers and not really providing affordable housing. So it's something, but that's an impact on human rights. And
I agree with you, and I
Yeah.
think it's just, how do we have to have a discerning person, and maybe that's you, Michelle, that can see that,
Yeah.
that can take what is a seemingly
Yeah.
innocuous, whatever.
On the other hand, like
Say-
sewer maintenance may not really impact human rights unless they're only gonna replace the sewers on the east side, you see?
Yes, so I hear all of that. We're still gonna do research on other HRCs and see. But I just wanted to get, so if, I guess my to-do items is to give you a point of contact person. And some of you already have them, so. I will do that and reach out in the next month. So the next community forum will be focused on immigration. It will happen during welcoming week. We will loop you in, Pamela. I just wanted to make sure Roxana and I are on the same page, and we also do it with the county. It'll be September, I wanna say the 13th through like the 19th. It's like that kind of second. September, and then we'll solidify a date and everything. We're gonna pull Pamela in and then we'll give updates. But the county just started planning this, so I want to make sure they look at the whole week and then we could plug in where we need to, but it's a green light for that.
Great.
Roxanne is very excited, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. Especially like with the election
Yeah.
coming and immigration is a really big topic.
And we'll
So
go right in September.
we're gonna have to have some really dignified.
Think about all of that still. We were just like, okay, what can this look like? There's a lot of different issues. So I am excited for that. That's the quick update.
Thank you.
I'll give the floor.
Any other new business anyone would like to bring up for the good of the order? Okay, you have obviously something on your mind.
I'll just
Let
say
me write.
quickly, and I mentioned it to Michelle earlier, and that is, I'm curious about what's going on in the hockey stadium.
Yes.
And what kind of community engagement is happening there? I'm sure some community engagement is happening. I know our state legislature is also doing whatever they're doing. So I think it would be helpful for us to sort of have an inventory of like what's going on, because they are moving very fast.
They're moving
are
very fast. I mean,
fast.
one concern I know I have is like the impact on like Japantown.
Right.
Right.
And then what's the implications of that, as well as, you know,
Speaking of sister cities, I mean, maybe we should ask them to,
right, as well as the cultural components to like a Robino Hall and.
When you say
museum.
outreach, are you just more referencing like the residents and what their thoughts on it are, or?
right, I mean, if they're gonna be, if the city's gonna be investing taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Mhm.
And the state is gonna be investing taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
In huge giant projects. Then they should be engagement, which I highly doubt.
Well, and not
Yeah.
just investing city dollars, public dollars, but I think also giving one individual so much say over the shape of our city.
And that's right, yeah, and that's why I
Very
want.
troubling, some rich guy.
There was a policy song,
Mm-hmm.
the governors, and they had a whole panel of discussion about this, and they say they did consult with the West Side. And like,
Well, there was a big
When they
meeting
jump.
tonight.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, we-
I mean,
Yeah, we
that's
wouldn't
not me
do it.
saying that's what they said, I kind of have the same,
You know, it.
but name drop, please.
Well, maybe what we need to do is, somebody on this commission maybe needs to take the lead and get involved in all those discussions. There was a meeting tonight,
Yeah.
right before this meeting, where the city council was presented with options. And there was a huge protest that was started to save Abravanel, to oppose the development to, because the initial proposal was to knock down Abravanel Hall,
Or they
change the
wanted to put
structure of
the
the
other side
Salt
too,
Lake
yeah.
City, I call it the Salt Palace, but it's the entertainment.
Yeah.
Convention hall or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And so it's moving very, very rapidly, because Ryan Smith wants to shovel the dirt as quick as he
Right.
can.
The 99-year lease on this, I mean, there's a. whole
Right,
list
there's
of
a
things
whole
that
lot
he-
of stuff going
and I
on,
just,
and.
like, why does he get to
you know,
dictate
Pat,
what our city
hu-
is
human
like?
rights
Mhm.
all across the city.
Yes. And I would say, you all can also talk to your council members, like the Human Rights Commission, which Councilmember Wharton reminded us of, also advises city council. So having those one-on-one conversations with, you guys all serve in positions, or if you're at large, you can still feel free to talk with your city council member. That's a good interaction.
Yeah, well, we're doing, I know east side's doing that, I know the west side is doing.
Yes.
I mean,
It almost feels like
Part of
we're
it-
gonna be end up doing damage control.
the Utah Constitution,
So the things.
yeah, a lot of that power.
So fast,
There
we're not gonna be.
Power
Well,
itself.
I have some real.
And also some
sort of philosophical objections, I don't want to take too much time.
Totally,
And
which,
an hour. But I have a real.
but then again, does the state override the county?
Taxing all the
So-
residents of Salt Lake City
They
to
did.
benefit the few who will actually use the entertainment sports district and go to events or go to restaurants and whatever in that district. My idea
don't live.
would be to create a special tax district that consists of that sports entertainment and raise the taxes, raise the sales taxes in that district only to pay for the development of the district, not everybody, not the west side, east side, south part of town, which may never use the facilities. So make it a special taxing district and also increase the property taxes within that district to pay for these, new venues. So basically, make the people who are the benefit and are using it within the district pay the cost, rather than spread that cost around the entire city for the benefit of a few owners and people who want to go to the sports events.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can't even afford tickets. They can't afford tickets to
Michelle?
go to.
Yeah.
One thing we may need to remember, and I don't know if how this works, but Abravanel Hall is not the jurisdiction of the city. Even though it's in the city, it's actually the county, yeah.
Likewise, the Salt Palace, right?
Yeah,
Also-
yeah, that too, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know because I saw something in the paper, Mayor Wilson, talking about making sure that
But I think they're.
the cultural
proposing-
treasure of Abravanel Hall is
But
respected.
aren't they proposing to increase the sales tax in the city to pay for it?
Citywide.
I haven't, I don't know, I haven't
Ours
seen,
have the
are
difference.
they?
Yeah.
Can I opt out of that one?
I don't think, well, you can, just don't buy anything.
You're super wealthy, parents.
Hey, also one last thing, I love that we have a commission, like.
Yeah, great to meet in person.
It is great whenever it's.
Sorry, Commissioner Lita, I just want to make sure that you adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
No problem.
I was about to get there. We asked for.
Okay.
Yes,
So I just want to make sure.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have
Okay.
any opposed? It's passed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye, Everett.
Bye.